before the rain falls, pause with us. Tell us where you're watching from: Lagos, Abuja, London, Nairobi, New York, or anywhere else. Drop your location in the comments and become part of this story. Now listen. Every city has moments where kindness is inconvenient. Busy roads, rushing crowds, people too tired to stop. In Lagos, life moves fast, and most people learn to keep going because stopping costs something. This is not a story about miracles or sudden wealth. It is a story about a choice. A young woman with nothing but tired feet and a good heart. An old woman the world had stopped noticing. One rainy road. One decision that didn't ask for applause. This story asks a simple question. Who are you when no one is watching? Not when there's a reward. Not when there's praise. But when helping means inconvenience. As the rain begins and traffic roars, remember this. Kindness doesn't shout. It waits. Tell us again, where are you watching from? Now let the story begin. Rain fell the way it always did in Lagos, sudden, heavy, unapologetic. It slapped the roofs of Danfo buses, flooded potholes, and turned the Owelegbayaba road into a chaotic river of honking horns and splashing tires. Zara Nkem Adeyemi stood under the narrow awning of Blue Pine Cafe, clutching her thin cardigan tighter around her body. Her evening shift had just ended. Her feet ached. Her palms smelled faintly of detergent and coffee. The kind of tired that lived deep in the bones followed her everywhere now. She stepped onto the sidewalk, careful not to slip. Lagos didn't pause for exhaustion, or for kindness. As she approached the pedestrian crossing, she noticed an elderly woman standing alone at the edge of the road. The woman gripped her walking cane with both hands. Rain soaked her wrapper. Cars rushed past inches from her feet. Danfo conductors shouted. Drivers cursed. Not a single person slowed down. People passed her. Some glanced. Most didn't. Zara stopped. She didn't know why. She had missed buses before. She had learned the hard way that stopping in Lagos often meant suffering. But something about the woman's trembling hands pulled her back. "Ma," Zara said gently, stepping closer. "Let me help you cross." The old woman looked up, startled. Fear flickered in her eyes, the fear of someone who had been ignored for too long. Then relief followed, slow and cautious. Together, they stepped onto the road. A car sped through a puddle, splashing water onto Zara's clothes. She didn't flinch. She shifted her body slightly, shielding the woman from the worst of it. Rain drenched her hair, soaked her shoes, but she kept moving one careful step at a time. Drivers blared horns. Someone shouted, "Move now!" Zara didn't rush. By the time they reached the other side, both women were breathing hard. "Thank you, my child," the woman said softly. "People don't stop anymore." Zara smiled small, shy. "You shouldn't be out here alone, Mama." "I called someone," the woman replied. "He's coming." Almost immediately, a sleek black SUV pulled up. The kind of car Zara only saw on billboards. The driver jumped out quickly, holding an umbrella. Before Zara could step away, the woman held her hand firmly. "You have a good heart," she said, eyes searching Zara's face. "Don't ever lose it." Zara nodded, embarrassed by the attention. Then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the rain, back toward her bus stop, back to her small life. She never looked back. She didn't know the woman's name. She didn't know she had just helped Mama Isabella Konwoko, mother of one of the most powerful men in Lagos. She witnesses or reward, had just opened a gate her life would never close again. And Lagos kept moving, unaware that destiny had just crossed the road. The rain had softened into a mist by the time the black SUV merged into traffic, gliding smoothly through Lagos roads that moments earlier had shown no mercy. Inside the back seat, Mama Isabella Cole Nwoko sat quietly, her damp wrapper folded neatly over her knees. Her hands, still trembling slightly, rested on the polished armrest. Across from her, her son stared at the tablet in his hands, eyes scanning figures, schedules, acquisitions, the language of power that never slept. Darian Cole Nwoko barely looked up. "Mama," he said, his voice calm but edged with restrained irritation. "You shouldn't be crossing roads like that alone, especially in this weather." Mama Isabella smiled faintly, not defensive, not apologetic. "I know," she replied, "but today something happened." That made him pause, his fingers stilled on the screen. She turned her face toward the window, watching Lagos blur past umbrellas, traffic lights, rushing bodies. "A young woman helped me cross the road." Darian glanced up briefly. "You have security." "I had no security there," she corrected gently. "And that is the point." She described the girl, her soaked clothes, the tired eyes, the way she placed her own body between traffic and an old stranger. No questions, no hesitation, no glance to see who was watching. "She didn't know who I was," Mama Isabella continued. "She thought I was just another old woman Lagos could ignore." Something shifted. Darian set the tablet aside. "She could have walked past," she said. "Everyone else did, but she stopped, not because she wanted anything, but because she couldn't not help." Silence filled the car. Darian leaned back slightly, his jaw tightening not with anger, thought. In his world, people were kind for reasons. Favors always came with invoices. Loyalty was negotiated. Compassion was performative. But this, "What is her name?" he asked finally. Mama Isabella exhaled. "I didn't ask." She left quickly, like someone used to disappearing. The car slowed as it turned into the tall gates of the Cole Nwoko estate in Ikoyi. Security saluted. Gates opened. Power resumed its familiar posture. Yet Darian's mind wasn't there. "She works somewhere nearby," his mother added. "She wore a cafe uniform. Blue." Darian nodded once, sharp, certain. "I'll find her." The next morning, while Lagos woke to generators and headlines, Mama Isabella sat wrapped in a shawl on her balcony, replaying the memory again and again. Not the rain, the girl's calm. When Darian entered, phone already pressed to his ear, she looked up. "Did you find her?" He ended the call. "Not yet, but I will." Hours later, his phone vibrated. "Sir," the head of security reported quietly, "we found her. Name is Zara Nkem Adayemi. She works evening shifts at Blue Pine Cafe, Yaba." Mama Isabella smiled slow and satisfied. "Zara," she repeated. "A beautiful name." Darian looked out over the Ikoyi skyline, thoughtful. "She helped you without knowing who you were," he said. "Yes," his mother replied softly. "Now let us meet her without reminding her who we are." And somewhere in Yaba, wiping tables and counting tips, Zara had no idea her name had just been spoken inside one of the most powerful homes in Lagos, or that her quiet kindness had already begun to move people who rarely moved for anyone. For Zara Nkem Adayemi, Life returned to its familiar rhythm: morning traffic, evening shifts, aching feet, counting coins before sleep. Lagos had a way of swallowing extraordinary moments and turning them into forgettable rain. By the third evening, she had almost convinced herself the incident on Ogwilegba-Yaba Road meant nothing. Then the black SUV arrived. It pulled up quietly outside Blue Pine Cafe, its windows tinted, its engine humming with calm confidence. Zara barely noticed it at first. She was busy wiping down a table, her apron damp from spilled water. "Excuse me." The voice was polite, controlled. She turned and froze. The man standing before her was impeccably dressed, posture straight, eyes observant without being intrusive. He looked completely out of place among the cafe's cracked tiles and humming generator. "Yes," Zara said carefully. "Are you Zara Nkem Adeyemi?" Her heart skipped. "Yes." He nodded. "My employer would like to see you." Zara frowned slightly. "Your employer?" "Mama Isabella Konwoko." The name landed like thunder. Zara's breath caught. Images rushed back: the rain, the cane, the trembling hands, the SUV. Her stomach tightened. "She's fine," the man added calmly, reading the fear on her face. "She simply wishes to thank you." Zara hesitated. Lagos had taught her caution, but something about the man's tone, respectful, not demanding, eased her nerves. "I just finished work," she said softly. "That's fine," he replied. "The car is waiting." The ride was silent. Lagos rushed past the window. Yellow buses, shouting vendors, flickering streetlights. Zara sat stiffly, hands folded in her lap, wondering how a life like hers had collided with a name she'd only heard on the news. The gates of Ekoyi opened slowly. Zara's breath faltered. The estate before her looked unreal: tall gates, trimmed hedges, glowing lights. This wasn't just wealth, it was distance. A world designed to keep people like her outside. Inside the mansion, everything felt hushed. Polished floors, art that looked too expensive to touch. Even the air seemed calmer. Then she saw her. Mama Isabella walked toward her with the same gentle smile she'd worn in the rain. "Zara," she said warmly, "I'm so glad you came." Zara bowed her head slightly, unsure whether to kneel, greet, or disappear. "Good evening, Ma." "You helped me when you didn't know who I was," Mama Isabella continued. "That matters." Before Zara could respond, footsteps echoed behind her. She turned slowly. A tall man stood there, composed, commanding, unreadable. Darian Cole Nwoko. The room seemed to shift. "My mother told me what you did," he said calmly. "Please sit." Zara obeyed, heart pounding. "This is not about money," he continued, as if reading her thoughts. "It's about opportunity." An envelope was placed gently before her. Inside was not cash. It was a job offer, a real one, at the Aurum Grace Foundation. Zara's hands trembled as she read. Mama Isabella leaned forward. "Kindness opened a door for you, my child. What you do next will be your own choice." Zara swallowed hard, eyes burning. She had crossed a road in the rain. Now she was standing at the edge of an entirely new life, one she never asked for, never imagined, but somehow quietly earned. Zara woke before her alarm. Lagos was still quiet, the rare kind of quiet that only existed before generators coughed to life and horns began their arguments. She lay staring at the ceiling of her small room in Yaba. the envelope from Orem Grace Foundation resting on her chest like something unreal. By 7 a.m., she stood outside the glass building on Victoria Island, her reflection staring back at her from the polished doors. She looked smaller here, simpler. Her clothes were clean, but modest. Her shoes worn. Around her, people moved with practiced confidence, crisp suits, fast steps, phones pressed to ears. For a moment, she considered turning back. Then she remembered the rain, the trembling hands, the choice she had made without thinking. She stepped inside. The lobby was breathtaking white marble floors, soft lighting, framed photographs of charity projects across Nigeria, schools built, hospitals funded, children smiling into cameras. Zara slowed, reading the stories beneath each photo, feeling something warm and heavy settle in her chest. "Miss Adeyemi." A woman in a navy blazer approached, her smile polite but measured. "I'm Mrs. Grace Afolayan, HR manager. Welcome." Grace led her through long hallways, explaining her duties in a calm, efficient tone, assisting Mama Isabella, organizing charity correspondence, supporting outreach programs. Real work, real responsibility. Zara nodded carefully, absorbing every word. She didn't want to miss anything. This wasn't charity. This was trust. By mid-morning, she had a small desk near the administrative wing. Files were stacked neatly beside her. A name tag lay waiting. Zara N. Adeyemi assistant. As she settled in, the whispers began. "Who's that?" "She's new. I heard Madame brought her personally." "Look at her clothes." Zara heard everything. She pretended she didn't. She focused on the file's letters from widows, requests from schools, pleas from families she recognized too well. Each page felt familiar. Each story could have been hers. Across the corridor, Darian, Cole, and Woko paused. He hadn't planned to stop, but he did. He watched as Zara worked, no exaggeration, no desperation to impress, just quiet focus, care, respect for the stories in her hands. For reasons he couldn't fully explain, something eased in his chest. Then a shadow crossed Zara's desk. "So," a voice said smoothly, "you're the new assistant." Zara looked up. The woman before her was flawless tailored suit, sharp eyes, smile that didn't reach them. "I'm Bianca Odelica," she said, "Senior Executive Assistant." Zara stood quickly. "Nice to meet you, Ma." Bianca's gaze swept over her once, slowly. "Interesting," she murmured. "Very interesting." She walked away, heels clicking softly, leaving behind a tension Zara couldn't name, only feel. By the end of the day, Zara's head ached, but her heart felt steady. She hadn't been chased out. She hadn't failed. Yet, as Lagos traffic swallowed her on her way home, she didn't know that this new world had already begun to test her quietly, patiently, or that kindness alone would soon no longer be enough. By Zara's second week at Orem Grace Foundation, the building no longer felt unfamiliar, but it didn't feel welcoming either. She had learned the rhythms of the place, the morning greetings that sounded warm but stopped at politeness, the smiles that faded the moment she turned away, the conversations that paused when she entered a room. Lagos elites had perfected subtlety. No one insulted her openly. They didn't need to. Zara kept her head down. She arrived early, left late. She triple-checked every document, answered every email carefully, and treated each charity request as if it were her own family asking for help. Work had always been her shield. It still was. Bianca Adelica noticed everything. From her glass-partitioned office, Bianca watched Zara quietly earn trust she believed should have belonged to her. Mama Isabella asked for Zara by name now. Darian nodded at her work without complaint. Small acknowledgements, but in Bianca's world, small things threatened everything. One afternoon, Bianca stopped by Zara's desk, holding a stack of neatly labeled folders. "Zara," she said brightly, her voice smooth, "I need your help." Zara looked up quickly. "Yes, Ma. These files need to be reorganized and sent to the donor mailing list before noon tomorrow. Very important." Bianca placed the folders down gently, like a gift. Zara flipped through them. Everything looked official: donor names, figures, schedules. "I'll handle it," she said, eager to prove she was reliable. Bianca smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Good," she said softly. "Make sure it goes to everyone." As Bianca walked away, Zara felt a flicker of unease, brief, easily dismissed. She told herself it was nerves. New people always felt that way in new spaces. That evening, Zara stayed late, carefully typing the email, checking attachments twice, reading everything word by word. She remembered Mama Isabella's trust, Darian's quiet expectation. She clicked send. By the next morning, the foundation was on fire. Phones rang non-stop. Staff rushed through corridors. Voices collided, confused, angry, urgent. What was sent out? Why did donors receive this? This document was internal. Zara felt the blood drain from her face. She hadn't moved from her chair when a voice cut through the noise, calm, controlled, unmistakable. "Zara." Darian stood at the doorway of his office. "Come inside." The door closed behind them, sealing out the chaos. Zara's hands shook. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I followed the instructions. I didn't know." "Who gave you the file?" Darian asked quietly. She hesitated, then spoke the truth. "Bianca." Something hardened in his eyes, not toward Zara, but toward understanding. "You made a mistake," he said evenly, "but someone intended it." Zara's chest tightened with shame. She waited for dismissal, for disappointment. Instead, Darian said, "I don't punish people for being targeted." Relief broke through her like air after drowning. "From now on," he continued, "if anyone gives you a task that feels wrong, you come to me, directly." Zara nodded, tears threatening but unfallen. As she stepped back into the corridor, she understood something for the first time since the rain. Kindness had opened the door, but integrity would keep her standing. And Bianca, watching from a distance, realized her quiet test had failed. She would not stop there. The foundation settled back into order within days, but something invisible had shifted. The phone stopped ringing. The donors were reassured. The incident was buried under professionalism and careful explanations. To the outside world, nothing had happened. Inside, everything had. Zara returned to her desk the morning after the crisis with a quiet heaviness in her chest. She expected stares. She expected whispers sharper than before. Lagos workplaces did not forget mistakes easily, especially when the person who made them did not belong. But the whispers were different now. They were cautious. Some people avoided her eyes altogether. Others watched her as though trying to understand how a girl like her had walked out of Darian Cole Nwoko's office without consequences. Zara didn't explain. She never defended herself. She worked. That afternoon, Mama Isabella stopped by her desk, leaning lightly on her cane. "My dear," she said warmly, "how are you settling?" learning, Zara replied softly. Mama Isabella studied her for a long moment, the way she always did, as if listening to what was not said. Then she nodded. Good. Learning is how strength grows. Across the corridor, Bianca observed the exchange with a tightened jaw. She had expected consequences, a reprimand, a demotion, something. Instead, Zara had been protected. Not publicly, not loudly, but decisively. Later that day, Darian called Zara into his office again, not urgently, not sternly, simply, Zara, please come in. This time, she didn't feel fear. I reviewed your work, he said, handing her a folder. It's thorough. You treat every file like it matters. They're people's lives, sir, she replied instinctively. How could it not matter? Darian looked at her, then really looked. You remind my mother of something this place forgets too easily, he said. Why this foundation exists. He paused. You'll be working more closely with her from now on. Zara's breath caught. Thank you, sir. When she left his office, she felt steadier than she had since her first day. Not powerful, not proud, grounded. Bianca heard the change in the tone of instructions, the shift in access, the way doors opened for Zara without announcement. It was subtle, but to someone who lived by hierarchy, it was unmistakable. Zara was no longer exposed. And Bianca understood something dangerous then. If she wanted Zara gone, silence would no longer work. She would need a stage. And Lagos, with all its glitter and judgment, was already preparing one. The invitation arrived on heavy cream paper, embossed with gold letters that caught the light even before Zara fully understood what she was holding. Aurum, Grace Foundation, Annual Charity Gala. Venue, Echo Grandeur Ballroom, Victoria Island. Zara read it twice. She had heard staff talk about this night in hushed, reverent tones, the donors, the media, the powerful names that gathered under crystal chandeliers to decide where millions would go. It was the Foundation's most important night of the year. When Mama Isabella insisted she attend, Zara tried to refuse. I'll be in the way, Ma, she said quietly. Mama Isabella smiled, firm and gentle all at once. You work here. You belong here. Those words followed Zara all the way to the ballroom. The night of the gala, Victoria Island shimmered. Cars lined the entrance, sleek and polished. Cameras flashed. Laughter spilled from the grand doors as guests stepped out in designer gowns and tailored suits. Zara stood just inside the entrance, her simple dress neat but unmistakably modest among the luxury surrounding her. Her hands clasped together, grounding herself as she breathed in the air perfume, wealth, expectation. She felt eyes on her, not curious, evaluating. Then Darian appeared beside her, calm as ever, dressed in black, commanding without effort. You look fine, he said quietly. Just be yourself. It wasn't reassurance meant to impress. It was permission to exist. Across the room, Bianca Adelica watched. She wore elegance like armor, flawless makeup, sharp smile, confidence that belonged to someone who believed the room owed her respect. As she observed Zara move carefully through the crowd, assisting with lists, offering water, keeping to the edges, something dark settled behind her eyes. This was not Zara's place, and Bianca would prove it. Later in the evening, as conversations flowed and glasses clinked, Zara crossed the ballroom carrying a tray of water. A hand brushed against her arm. The tray tipped. Crystal shattered against marble. The sound echoed sharp, unforgiving. Silence fell. Then came the laughter, softer first, then louder. Zara froze, heat flooding her face. She heard a whisper slice through the moment, light but cruel. "She really doesn't belong here." Bianca's voice. Zara didn't wait for help. She didn't look for sympathy. She placed the tray down with shaking hands and walked away, her steps measured until she reached the terrace outside. The city hummed below. Lanterns glowed softly around her as tears finally slipped free. She had crossed a road in the rain without fear. But this was worse. Behind her, a familiar voice broke the silence. "Zara." Darian stepped onto the terrace, concern etched clearly across his usually unreadable face. "You did nothing wrong," he said firmly. She shook her head. "I embarrassed the Foundation." "No," he replied, stepping closer. "They embarrass themselves by forgetting why we are here." His words steadied her, but it was what he said next that changed something deeper. "Wealth shows loudly," Darian said. "Character does not. Tonight exposed both." Zara looked out over the Lagos skyline, her breathing slowing. For the first time, she realized something important. This night wasn't testing her place in their world. It was testing their worth in hers. The music in the ballroom softened, but the tension did not. Zara stood at the terrace doorway, wiping her face carefully, as if tears were something that could be folded away like a mistake. The city lights below blinked without concern. Lagos never paused for hurt feelings. Inside, the gala continued, conversations resumed, laughter patched back together, dignity rearranged for convenience. Then Mama Isabella appeared. She had watched everything. Not from the front row, not dramatically. From the side, the way women who had survived decades of power always did. She approached Zara slowly, her presence calm, grounding. "My child," she said gently, "walk with me." Zara hesitated. Mama Isabella took her hand, firm, certain. "You helped me walk once, now let me help you." They stepped back into the ballroom together. Heads turned. Whispers rippled like a disturbed surface. The woman everyone respected. The girl everyone had laughed at, side by side. Darian followed a step behind, silent, unyielding. Mama Isabella ascended the stage, microphone in hand. The room quieted instinctively. Power recognized power. "Before we continue," she began, her voice steady, "I want to tell you why tonight matters to me." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "Some weeks ago, I stood at a busy road in this city. Rain pouring, cars rushing, people passing. Her eyes swept the room. I was invisible. A murmur passed through the crowd. Everyone saw me," she continued, "but no one stopped, except one young woman." She turned and extended her hand. "This is Zara Nkem Adeyemi." The room stilled. "She helped me cross the road when she believed that I was nobody. She shielded me from rain with her own body. She did not ask my name. She did not ask for reward." Mama Isabella's voice softened, but it did not weaken. That moment reminded me what this foundation stands for. Not wealth, not status, compassion. The applause began hesitantly, then grew. Some guests lowered their eyes. Others clapped with genuine emotion. A few clapped because everyone else was. Zara stood frozen, not proud, not triumphant, just seen. Darian stepped forward. "This foundation exists to serve people," he said calmly. "Tonight, Let us honor the heart behind that purpose. The applause swelled. Across the room, Bianca stood motionless, her smile gone, reality settling where certainty once lived. Zara felt something shift inside her, not confidence born of praise, but peace born of truth. She had not raised her voice. She had not defended herself. And still, the truth had risen louder than any laughter that tried to bury it. Lagos watched, and for once it learned. The applause faded slowly, like rain easing after a storm. Guests returned to their seats, conversations softer now, eyes more careful. Some smiles were genuine, others were forced. But something had changed, not in the room alone, but in how Zara felt within it. For the first time since stepping into the Arum Grace Foundation, she did not feel like she was borrowing space. She belonged. Mama Isabella squeezed her hand gently before returning to her seat, her expression peaceful, as though a long-held responsibility had finally been set down. Darian remained close, not hovering, not guarding, simply present. Bianca Adelica did not move. She stood near the back of the ballroom, her flawless composure cracked just enough to reveal disbelief beneath it. Years of careful positioning, of silent manipulation, had unraveled in a single truth she could not rewrite. She said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Later that night, as the gala drew to a graceful close, Zara stepped outside again, this time not to hide, but to breathe. The terrace felt different now. The city lights below seemed warmer, less distant. I never planned to speak, Zara said quietly, her voice barely above the hum of traffic far below. You didn't need to, Darian replied. Truth doesn't require permission. She smiled faintly. I almost left. I know. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Zara said something she had carried for years. People like me learn early to stay small. It's safer. Darian looked at her, thoughtful. Staying small keeps you alive, he said. But it also keeps the world smaller than it should be. Inside, Bianca gathered her things quietly and left before the final goodbyes. No confrontation followed her, no punishment announced, but power had a way of recalculating itself. By the next morning, everyone would know where she stood. As the night ended, Zara returned home to Yaba, the same streets, the same buses, the same narrow room. Yet nothing felt the same. She slept deeply for the first time in weeks. But peace, Zara would soon learn, was not the end of her test. It was the pause before the next one. Because destiny, once awakened, does not retreat. And just as Lagos exhaled from the spectacle of the night, a call was already being made, one that would pull Zara forward again, not as a symbol, but as a choice. A choice that would prove whether her kindness was a moment or a way of life. Morning came quietly, too quietly. Zara woke to the thin light slipping through her Yaba window, the city unusually hushed, as if Lagos itself was holding its breath. For the first time in a long while, she felt rested not because her life had become easier, but because her heart had finally stopped fighting itself. Her phone rang. The sound cut through the stillness. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello. Zara. Darian's voice. Her chest tightened instantly. Sir, there's been an incident, he said, calm but strained in a way she had never heard before. My mother collapsed this morning. She's been taken to St. Helena Specialist Hospital, Ikoyi. The room seemed to tilt. Collapsed. Mama Isabella's face flashed in Zara's mind, steady, warm, unshaken even under chandeliers and judgment. The woman who had taken her hand in the rain. The woman who had lifted her voice when Zara could not. "I'm coming," Zara said without thinking. There was a pause on the other end. "You don't have to." "I know," Zara replied softly. "But I'm coming." She dressed quickly, hands trembling now, not with fear, but urgency. This time, no one had asked her to come. No invitation, no envelope. This was choice. At the hospital, the smell of antiseptic filled the air. Doctors moved with controlled speed. Darian stood near the waiting area, jacket still on, eyes fixed ahead, but unfocused, a man used to solving problems, suddenly facing one he could not command. When he saw Zara, something in his posture shifted. "You came," he said quietly. "She would do the same," Zara replied. Hours passed slowly. Nurses whispered updates. Machines beeped behind closed doors. Power, money, influence, none of it could rush time now. Eventually, a doctor approached. "She's stable," he said, "but she needs rest, and someone calm nearby." Darian exhaled for what felt like the first time that day. Later, Zara sat beside Mama Isabella's bed, holding her hand just as she had on the roadside. The older woman's eyes fluttered open. "My child," she murmured faintly. Zara smiled through tears. "You helped me walk into a new life. Let me help you rest." Mama Isabella squeezed her fingers weakly, pride and peace settling between them. In that quiet hospital room, Zara understood something deeper than applause or recognition. Kindness was not a door you passed through once. It was a path you chose again and again, even when no one was watching. And Lagos, loud and restless as ever, carried on outside. Unaware that a young woman who once crossed a flooded road was now crossing something far greater, from gratitude into responsibility, from opportunity into purpose. Days passed at St. Helena Specialist Hospital, measured not by clocks, but by quiet routines. Zara came every morning before work. She brought warm water, adjusted pillows, read softly when Mama Isabella's eyes tired easily. No cameras, no announcements, just presence, the kind that didn't ask to be thanked. Darian watched it all from the edges. He had seen loyalty before contractual, strategic, temporary. This was different. Zara stayed when there was nothing left to gain. When the applause had faded, when the room was small and smelled of disinfectant instead of perfume. One afternoon, Mama Isabella slept peacefully as Darian stepped into the corridor with Zara. "You don't have to keep doing this," he said gently. "We have staff." Zara shook her head. "This isn't staff work." He studied her, the words settling between them. "You're changing how this place moves," he said after a moment. Quietly, "That's harder to ignore." Back at the foundation, consequences arrived without drama. Bianca Adelica was reassigned. Officially, it was a strategic restructuring. Unofficially, everyone understood. Access reduced, authority narrowed, power recalculated. No public shaming followed, just the slow, unmistakable closing of doors she once controlled. Zara never celebrated it. She didn't mention Bianca's name again. When Mama Isabella was finally cleared to return home, she asked for Zara to help her walk the first few steps out of the hospital room. The nurses smiled, recognizing something rare. At the entrance, sunlight spilled across the floor. "You crossed the road for me once," Mama Isabella said softly. "Today, you crossed something harder." Zara smiled. I just stayed. Back in Yaba that evening, Zara sat on her bed, the city humming through thin walls. Her life had not transformed into ease. She still took buses, still budgeted carefully, still worked hard. But she carried something new now, not status, not privilege. Clarity. She knew who she was. And she knew that kindness, when chosen daily, became strength, the kind that reshaped rooms, institutions, even powerful men who thought they had seen everything. Lagos did not change overnight. But somewhere in its noise and motion, a quieter rhythm had begun to beat steady, human, unafraid. And Zara understood that this story was never about being lifted out of the rain. It was about learning how to stand in it and remain whole. Life did not become perfect after that. Lagos never promised perfection. Weeks later, Zara still woke before dawn in Yaba. She still squeezed into buses, still counted money carefully, still felt tired some days in the way only people who had known struggle could feel tired. But something inside her had settled. At the Aurum Grace Foundation, her role expanded quietly, not announced, not dramatized. She began coordinating outreach visits herself, visiting markets, schools, roadside communities the way she once lived among them. People listened to her, not because of her title, but because she spoke their language. She did not arrive with pity. She arrived with understanding. Mama Isabella watched proudly from a distance. Power, she told Darian one evening at the Ikoyi estate, does not always look like authority. Sometimes it looks like someone who remembers where the road is broken. Darian nodded. He had learned to recognize that kind of power now. One rainy evening, eerily similar to the one that began everything, Zara stood again at Ogwelebayaba Road, umbrella in hand, waiting for a bus. Traffic roared, rain poured, Lagos moved on. Then she saw him. A man struggling to help his elderly father cross the flooded road, cars rushing past, impatience rising. Without hesitation, Zara stepped forward. "Let me help," she said gently. Together, they crossed. When they reached the other side, the man thanked her repeatedly. Zara smiled and waved it off, already stepping away. She didn't wait for recognition. She didn't look around, because she finally understood. Kindness was not the moment that changed her life. Kindness was who she had always been. And somewhere between rain-soaked roads and marble halls, Zara Nkem Adeyemi had learned that the world doesn't change when power notices goodness. It changes when goodness refuses to stop. Lagos continued to rush. Horns blared. Rain fell. But on that road, once again, someone crossed safely. And that was enough.